All right, we're continuing through the book of Job. Hopefully you've been able to start reading it at least. We've been super easy the last 2 weeks. We're only at chapter 3 of like 45 chapters, right? Next week's reading goes to like chapter 34 though, so get busy. Like that. It's a good book to read though. It's difficult. You got to understand that. It's dense Hebrew poetry. And the section we got in today, the part that Judy read, was poetry. It's poetry. I'm right on the squeak on the floor right now. It's bugging me. And so it's poetry. It's right there. It's really dense. But if you remember from last week, we started with this kind of heavenly courts of God, and God is kind of presented as this judge kind of over everything. And the Satan comes forward, and Satan means in Hebrew, remember, it means adversary or the opposer type of thing. So that's the one who's adversarial towards someone else. So he goes up and he basically accuses God and says, God, the only reason why people are being righteous is because you give them good things. Like if you just gave me good things all the time, I would do good stuff too. If you take that stuff away, they will stop being righteous. And God's like, well, have you seen Job? And so they take everything away from Job. Everything away. And we ended last week with Job sitting on the ash heap of his previous wealth. Sitting atop the ashes of his burned down foundations. So that's kind of where we are. And I think today, a good thing to talk about is our birthdays, right? Because everyone loves their birthdays. Does everyone likes? You don't like your birthdays? I'm like, everyone loves their birthdays, and I got a little cohort over here who's like, nope, I don't like them. Like I avoid them. I go in hiding for the month. You know, it's like come up gingerly, all that stuff. Like, no, birthday. My dad, in the Escher household growing up, my dad had what we called the birthday week. And somehow we had something going on every day that week that was related to my father's birthday. Like that's just kind of what happens with him. And he's big into that. But it's birthdays. Like generally we love birthdays unless you're really weird, right? Like that's... And that's and so yeah, birthdays. They're discussing about how much they hate birthdays right now. Like that's what happened. It's all coming towards you guys today. All right, that's just kidding. Anyway, but yeah, we love birthdays, and we get special birthday cards. I went to Walgreens and I got some special birthday cards here, and birthday cards are ridiculous now. Have you noticed that? Like it's all embossed. They open weird. Like this one's got a little window that you can look through. It's got like a ribbon on the top of it that's attached to it. Like there's a lot going on in this. And then it has this nice birthday message for you. And first off, it says, "You're special to me." Oh, yeah, it's like it's your birthday. But honestly, there are not enough days in the year to celebrate all the wonderful things that you are. You're someone I look to who's always been there to hear me out, forgive my faults, and just say the thing that'll make me laugh. Aw, happy birthday, right? Then you have this card, and this card, it opens differently than others. Then you realize, wait a second, they're just getting cheap. They're printing only on one side. That's cheaper to do that. Come on, Hallmark, get it together, right? So, and this one says, when you look into the mirror on your birthday, I want you to see the same beautiful face that I see whenever I look at you. I want you to see eyes that sparkle with the intelligence and maybe just a few mischievous thoughts. You know? I want you to see a smile that's contagious that gets even better with time. When you look into the mirror today, I want you to see someone that is loved, that there will never be enough time to tell you how much. Aw, right? Aw. And this one, I'm not going to read it all because it's long, but it's the same story printing it just on one side. Did someone give that one? Or something like this one says, I love you and it just doesn't seem like enough. And then there's a poem that just says, I love you, it just doesn't seem like enough. Like, it doesn't seem like enough for someone whose smile brightens my day, whose touch can make me forget the rest of the world. Oh, yeah, oh, that's precious, isn't it? We'll keep that one safe. We won't put that one on the ground. And like, yeah, it's like, oh, birthdays, like there's not enough days to celebrate you and all the great things you do. And then we come into Job, and let's see him talk about birthdays. Let the day perish on which I was born. The night that said a man is conceived, let my day be darkness. My God above not seek it, nor light shine upon it. Let gloom and deep darkness claim it. Let clouds dwell upon it. Let the blackness of the day terrify it. That night let thick darkness seize it. Let it not rejoice among the days of the year. Let it not come into the number of the months. Behold, let that night be barren. Let no joyful cry enter it. Happy birthday. There's your card right there for the special friend, right? And that's your card for those people. Yeah, like we read that, and I don't know if like you're paying attention while Judy was reading there, but you're like, well, this is kind of depressing. Like this is not happy fun times. Like it's we come to laugh and to have fun and learn about God a little bit, right? Like we're like this is all sadness. What's going on here? He's lamenting the day that he was born. He's saying to God, basically, God, the day I was born should have been cursed, and I never entered into this world. That's what should have happened. There is no light in this. There's no hope in this, and it's just straight lament. And do you have a problem with it? Do you have a problem with the lament here? And be honest with yourself. Like, do you have a problem? Do you get a little uncomfortable with it? It's like, man, we're spending a lot of time talking about this lament stuff. Because I think our view of God exists in and around the blessings that we can get from God. And that's all we're concerned about. We're like, yeah, God is just the dispensing of blessings. And so we just have to always be like, happy fun times, God, right? We have to be happy all the time. And I have to be honest with you. These laments, they're all through the scriptures. All through it. These laments are through there, and we don't read them. In fact, when I have to create a worship service, which I have to do a lot, it's kind of my job. But when I have to create a worship service, I have to be careful about the things that I choose, because there are a ton of psalms which are just straight lament, just straight sadness. And if I did some of those, I would have 1, 2, 3, 10 of you come to me at the end and be like, you know, Pastor, it was a good service. It was just a bit of a buzzkill. Like I come in to feel better about things, right? Like that's like it's like cheered. I'm a little more cheery next time, maybe. Like can you do that? Can you do that for me? Because I worry that we've made God into this happy, fun time, good blessing guy, and that we don't think about the lament. We don't deal with the lament. We don't deal with the sad times, right? And I have evidence for this, right? I have some of the Psalms that are laments. So the first one I have is Psalm 80. It says, O Lord, God of hosts, how long will you be angry with your people's prayers? You have fed them with the bread of tears and given them tears to drink in full measure. You make us an object of contention for our neighbors, and our enemies laugh amongst themselves. And you guys know what to do. This is the word of the Lord. There you go. And to further bring it into it, we have, I'll read the blue, you read the white. Oh God, you have rejected us, broken our defenses. You've been angry, oh restore us. You have made the land to quake, and you have torn it open. Prepare its breaches for its daughters. You have made your people see hard things. This wine to drink that made it stagger. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God, right? Like that's We never do this, right? And then I saved the best for last. You have rejected us and disgraced us and have not gone out with our armies. You have made us turn back from the foe, and those who hate us have gotten spoil, and you have made us like sheep for slaughter, and have scattered amongst the nations, and have sold your people for a trifle, demanding no high price for them. You have made us the taunt of our neighbors, the derision and scorn of those around us, and have made us a byword among the nations, a laughing stock amongst the peoples. All day long my disgrace is before me, and shame has covered my face at the sound of the tumult and the reviler, at the sight of the enemy and the avenger. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. It does. We've gone away from it. We've gone away from this practice, right? It's not the happy fun times Hallmark card God, right? It's there, and it's filled, like the Psalms, just pick it up. And you're just like, what is going on here? And we typically don't read that there. So, but in Job, like this idea permeates the entire book. And in the Old Testament, this idea is there. Even our favorite psalm talks about it. Psalm 23, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. That same phrase, it's just translated differently in English, happens in Job. It's right around that white part. But let gloom and darkness claim it. Like he's talking about walking through that valley of the shadow of death, right? He's about walking. So we have a hard time lamenting, I think. I think it's just not in our culture. We're like, we need to be happy all the time, 100%, 24/7. Like all happy. And we view being sad as just terrible, and it's just a terrible feeling. And I'm just like, I can't deal with it, because sometimes it hurts to be sad. And it does hurt to be sad. It does hurt to lament. Have you guys all seen Inside Out? Yeah? Yeah, so many of you, none of you? Come on, really? 4 people? Like, really? Yeah. Like I saw it with you two. So like that's, like there is a part in that movie, like it's been years since that movie was released, so I'll spoil things for you. The part where Bing Bong bails, all right? The part where Bing Bong bails, I could not stop crying, all right? That part, and I was in the theater, and even though I was in there with everybody else, this theater filled with people, and we're all just messes and just couldn't get ourselves together, right? And all just crying together. Like I was trying to get myself, I was like, what is this salty discharge coming from my eyes? I just couldn't get it together, and I wanted to so bad, but I couldn't. Why could I not just cry? Even though the entire room was crying. Because this movie's manipulative and just rips tears out of you. Because it's Pixar, and that's what they do. You guys need to see Inside Out if you haven't seen it. You guys all need to have a good cry. I can tell. But it's like, why was I uncomfortable with it? And I think we're all just a little uncomfortable with overt sadness. Because we don't know how to do it. We don't know how to lament anymore. We're just uncomfortable. Our culture just banishes it from us. Like that, reading those Psalms was evidence of that. It was just, we're completely uncomfortable with it. I mean, look, how do we respond to people? Like when we have a friend that dies, do we sit with them in their suffering and talk about how terrible this is? Or do we try to distance ourselves from it and say things like, it's okay, at least they've gone off to a better place? It's like daggers to the heart, right? Like that's when we see someone that's in financial tragedy, with financial problems, do we sit with them in their pain, or do we criticize them and tell them to pull themselves out of it and get back to work? Or you have someone that's kind of going through a personal trauma. They're filled with anxiety and worry about something. Do you sit with them in their sorrow, or do you tell them just to buck up and get through it? lamenting, it's part of our faith, and it's hard. Feeling pain is part of our life, and it's hard. It's the real world that's all around us is that we're feeling. Because there's going to be days where good things happen, and there's going to be days that are filled with tragedy. And have you ever met one of those people that's just like, even though tragedy is happening all around them, they're like weirdly happy about it? You're like, I don't know what's going on with you right now, but this isn't the correct response, right? And that's when we know that. We don't usually trust people like that. Like that's because we know there's some kind of weird show, but yet we put that quality onto God and Jesus. You see, the Hebrews understood this. The Hebrew people, like they understood this. All right, you know they were called the nation of Israel, right? Their name was Israel. That country's still around. Do you guys know what Israel means? Do you know what Israel means? Yeah. So we have two people that have heard me preach for the last 3 years, basically, and she was like, and she yelled it out basically just in the seat. That's because I talk about this all the time. All right, but do you know what Israel means? It means wrestles with God. That's what it means in Hebrew. Wrestles with God. Imagine if that was your name, your identity was wrestles with God. Like that's not like happy fun times Jesus stuff right there, right? That's something more real, more serious that's getting in there, and that was their national identity. That's why most of the Psalms were like the ones that we read at the beginning, is because they are wrestling with God and they celebrate it. They go, God, why have you done this? Why is life like this? They lament. They lament. That's why they can say they will walk through the valley of the shadow of death, right? They know how to lament and they feel this pain, but I have to tell you that God is right there with them. And God is right there with you in your pain. If you've been to one of my funerals or memorial services, you've heard this before. And I'm actually about to give it at Centennial at Scott Hoffman's funeral right after this. But the same idea, but it's a powerful idea. It's one that Jesus, when he was walking around, he had this great friend named Lazarus, who was the brother of Mary Magdalene. Perhaps you've heard of her. And he got sick, and he was on his way over there, presumably to heal him or something like that. And he's walking there, and someone comes up and tells him that Lazarus has actually died. That Lazarus died. And like, think about it. If we have like happy fun times feeling God, he's like, oh, it's okay. I'm going to raise him up from the dead here in a little bit, right? It's like, oh, that's fine. It's all good. I'll take care of it. Don't worry about a thing. But what does Jesus do? Jesus wept. Jesus wept. Like he lived in the realm of the real. We call it the incarnation of God. And this Jesus, he wasn't just, just flesh and blood, which he definitely was flesh and blood, but he also got into the realness of our emotive selves. And got into not just the fun times of life, because he did turn water into wine. We have to remember that. He had a good time too. But he also, when his friend died, he wept. Yeah, he raises him from the dead in a little bit, and that's a huge testimony, but he wept in that time. And so often, I think when we lament, we pull away by ourselves and we're like, no one look at me, I'm hideous, right? Don't look at me, I'm crying, I'm over there. But we see that God doesn't do that. In fact, what we see with that story of Jesus and Lazarus and him weeping is that he is right there with you as you are crying. He's also right there with you when you're having a good time too, when you're having fun. He's right there with you, and he's crying with you because he's in the realm of the real with you. The difference between Jesus and Job is that when Jesus was feeling lament, and he was, Jesus felt real lament. I think about it. Yeah, we have the verse where he wept for his friend, but remember when he was in the Garden of Gethsemane? Like he felt the lament of a betrayal from a friend, from Judas, right? He felt that lament, that betrayal. He felt the lament as he prayed, God, there's got to be another way. He felt that lament. He felt that lament as Peter denied him 3 times. He felt that lament. He felt that lament as God's people said, no, we want the thief. Kill the righteous guy. He felt that lament. He felt that lament all the way to the cross. And then we know the big thing that he said when he felt the lament. My God, why have you forsaken me, right? He felt that lament. But if you notice, what is different between Jesus and Job? Because I think in this 3rd chapter of Job, all the sinless talk about Job, we're starting to see a chink in Job's armor. Because he is cursing the very day he died. He wants to change his entire life plan where he doesn't even exist anymore. And Jesus never wavers from the path that God put him. Yeah, he laments, he gets sad, but he never goes, but God, let's go a different way. He asks for a different way, but he never goes a different way. And that's what's hard on us all, because sometimes we're just like Job. We're like, just take it from me. I don't want anything to do with this anymore. But the beautiful part of the gospel is that lament that Jesus gave us on the cross, it became ours. His faithfulness to go to the cross became our faithfulness. His redemption, his made better, became our made betterness because of his resurrection. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful story. So this is where the promise is for us. The promise is for us is that he's never going to leave us, forsake us. And they've known, the Hebrew people, the people who wrestle with God, the Israelites, they've known this the whole time. Because that 23rd Psalm, it says, even though I walk through the valley of shadow of death, I will fear no evil. Because why? Because you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. Your rod and your staff, those aren't like comfort objects. But it's because God is being the strength in the midst of those dark, gloomy times. So, and sometimes beauty comes out of lament, but not every time. So here's the way we'll end. So in your life, as you live it, there's going to be sad times that happen. It's just reality. You're going to have good things that happen to you, and you're going to rejoice and have a great time with them. And there's going to be sad times. It's okay to lament, though. It's okay to lament and cry and feel pain. It's okay to suffer and complain, because I want you to know that God, Jesus, is right there with you, even as that's happening. But don't be like Job and just completely lose the plot, completely lose what's going on. But know that you have a God of the resurrection who has chosen to enter into your suffering. And He's with you. And He'll walk you even through the valley of the shadow of death. And He's working to bring you to the day of resurrection, the day that Jesus describes as the day where He'll wipe every tear from every eye. It's beautiful. So cry when you need to cry. It's the right thing to do. But be happy when you want to be happy. That's the right thing to do too. Because we know that God is with us in all of those situations.